Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Jurassic World Dominion video. In today's video we'll be going over something that I have wanted to discuss about this movie for nearly a whole entire year now, but never really came around to doing so. I want to discuss the Locusts of Dominion, and more specifically Hexapod Allies, and what they were planned for in the greater future of BioSyn. It can be a slightly confusing topic, but feel free to ask any questions that you might have about this program in the comments below, and I'll try my very best to answer each and every one of you. If some of you aren't aware of what Hexapod Allies is and what the intention was behind it, it may be that you haven't watched the extended edition for Jurassic World Dominion quite yet. This edition completely changes the whole overlook of the movie and makes Dominion so much better. It really expands the overall story and adds something unique and special that seemed to be slightly missing in the theatrical version. Nonetheless, I will eventually be explaining it in today's video, so fear not if you haven't touched up on it just yet. But for now, sit back, relax, get some snacks, and enjoy the video. So, the Locusts of Jurassic World Dominion, the B story of the movie. Something that a few people didn't like, and something that a few people did love, swaying the fans in opposite directions. For me personally, I absolutely loved the inclusion of the Locusts in this world. During my first viewing of the movie, I fell in love with these creatures being added to the story. The first time I saw a Locust appear in this movie, it just had such a different vibe to it, and it felt like they were really trying to expand this movie universe with more threats other than just corporate greed and dinosaurs running rampant. And Locusts were a great way to show that. I'm sure that the author of Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton, would have absolutely adored this movie in every single detail, as it's next to everything that he created via his books during his time on Earth. And Locusts would have been for sure the top of his list. I know that many people are here for the dinosaurs when it comes to Jurassic, but I actually would never be opposed to a Jurassic production where no dinosaurs are included as long as the story is good. For me, it felt like they were testing the waters with this, and it went down a treat with some of the fans. It just expanded this world a little bit more. While they aren't on screen for too long, they still gave you a sense of danger, while you saw little hints of the world trying to get to grips with this new plague that's starting to decimate the planet. Just before the scene in which Hexapod Allies are discussed, we can see a news alert pop up on Lewis Dodson's phone that's titled, "Locust Plague Jumps Continents." This was on screen enough for us to read and gather an idea of what exactly is happening with these creatures. Earlier on in the movie, Ellie Sattler mentions how these creatures are decimating crops from Iowa to Texas to give us a slight scale of this epidemic. Soon after, however, we're told by the CIA that the locust swarms keep growing and they'll continue to expand and take away our food and our food's food, hinting to the idea that humans will eventually starve out and may even resort to rationing in the near future. Little details like this give us a slight hint about what is going on in this world, and it's really nice to see. Not only are people dealing with dinosaurs on the mainland now, but they're also dealing with a new swarm of hungry locusts. But going back to the alert of Dodson's phone, while it is still hard to read the article while it's on screen, we can pause the video to see what it actually says. The subheading states that reports are emerging of sightings across Europe and Africa. Experts are urgently investigating the origin of the new species, which in itself would absolutely freak out Lewis Dodson, as he's aware that should they accurately depict and find out the source of these locusts, they can easily be traced back to him and BioSyn genetics, potentially ruining what he built as CEO of the company for the past 9 years. This is then further explained in the scene with Hexapod Allies. Continuing with what is said in the article, it states that there are fears that communities might be overwhelmed if the swarms grow out of control. Commentators are already comparing the scenes to something from the Old Testament. Last night, leaders across Europe were calling out for unified effort between nations in battling the plague. This article shows that these locusts are starting to expand much further than we expected. First we were told that it was Iowa to Texas, then we were told it would only be North America, and eventually the world. And now, we visually see that it's becoming continental, with Europe and Africa also now affected. So it's little storytelling like this that shows how the evolution of this story grew in just a matter of hours, which is a really cool concept to think about, to be honest. This also shows how vitally important the locusts were in this world, but what about this movie? What was the bigger picture? Well, as we can tell from the movie, The Locusts can be easily traced back to BioSyn, and more specifically Lewis Dodson. The man has become a genius in recent years, so of course he was well ahead of the game and understood what may follow. In this added scene via the extended edition, we can see that Lewis Dodson goes ahead and attempts to delete multiple Hexapod Allies files. We can see the file names on screen where some of them show that they are research documents, testing files, but the more important ones are sets. I assume by using the term sets, they actually mean batch numbers. These clearly show that these Locusts were tested and created numerous amounts of times, and it seems like the highest number that they got to in recent times was set 53A. Assuming it's in numerical order, a bare minimum of 53 batches of Locusts were made throughout his time at BioSyn. Maybe even more, considering that it's also titled as A, implying that there's a batch 53B, 53C, and so on. Assuming that this is the most recent batch number, it seems obvious that Lewis Dodson clearly lost his patience with the amount of failures that they had in this project, and that may be the ultimate reasoning behind the failed batch being left out into the open, pretty much causing the downfall of planet Earth. However, moving on, we then get to see the scene with the article, but then an alert pops up on his computer screen that prompts him to go down to the main servers as he cannot delete the files remotely and it must be done manually. We follow Lewis Dodson down into the server room where he attempts to locate the hard drive that contains the Hexapod Allies research files. Ramsey soon meets him. Now, if you haven't seen this scene yet, please go ahead and check it out. It is arguably one of the best dialogue scenes of the entire movie and really turns everything around. I'll try my best to showcase the parts about the scene that are important and very good, but you all know how copyright works here on YouTube. So do forgive me if any part of the video seems to be cut out and or is out of place. However, Ramsey clocks that Dodson is deleting research files as Dodson explains how infuriated he is that other people would love to get their hands on his research and take away what he's been working on for decades now, all because he made a bad call. This is where Ramsey brings up Hexapod Allies, where he fully explains the intent behind the project. I'll play a quick clip for you here, but if the video happens to not play, it was simply removed due to copyright. But he says,
Hexapod Allies.
What? What do people know?
The Locusts were designed to spread genetic modifications to crops. Protection against droughts, frost, disease, a breakthrough.
Goddamn right it was.
Yeah, only it didn't work. He made sure they couldn't eat BioSyn seeds, so they started eating everything else.
Which I did not see coming. But we have a
Only
solution.
independent farmers suffered at first. Nobody cared too much. Now the world's entire food supply is on the verge of collapse, and the trail is going to lead back here.
And we solved the problem, Ramsey. Thank you.
the Locusts were designed to spread genetic modifications to crops, protection against droughts, frost, disease, a complete breakthrough. Except, it didn't work. You made sure that they couldn't eat BioSyn seeds, so they started eating everything else. Only independent farmers were a threat, nobody cared too much. Now the world's entire food supply is on the verge of collapse, and the trail is going to lead back here, to you. This is actually a very powerful scene and a set of dialogue, as whilst Ramsey is discussing this, you can slowly see Lewis Dodson get instantly more stressed out and agitated as Ramsey Cole relays what he's discovered in his own mind and what Dodson already knew. Ramsey pleads with Dodson to accept responsibility of these actions and share his research with the world, where Dodson, yet again, has an impeccable set of dialogue discussing the reality of growing up in this world.
You know, I was 28 once. I get it. You look around, you realize you're surrounded by injustice and cruelty, and you want to change it. Yep. And then you grow up, somebody puts you in charge, and you see that there is no changing it. It's chomp or be chomped.
Then he finalises the scene saying, "We don't apologise for our mistakes, we erase them." Which further leads into seeing him pack up the hard drive later on when the fire breaks out and everyone's being evacuated. It also leads him to continue to burn the evidence of the Locusts by trying to kill them all off. Little did he expect, however, was a containment error. In typical fashion with this universe, there has to be a containment breach, doesn't there? But now we know exactly why the Locusts were brought into this world in the first place by Lewis Dodson. He discovered a way to bring an end to fighting against diseases, frost and droughts and much more for farmers. However, he didn't anticipate that they would go ahead and eat everything else besides BioSyn seeds, which is what we saw earlier on in the movie when we were at the ranch with Ellie Settler. Then with the expansion and fast reproduction of these creatures, we eventually saw them fly around the world and enter other continental regions. These could even be some regions where BioSyn seeds weren't being sold yet either, meaning that most of the crop in that continent might eventually be eaten and be absolutely no use, causing the downfall of humanity. Instead of admitting his mistakes and owning up by sharing his incredible research with the world, Lewis Dodson became egotistical and ignorant, and decided against it, thinking that the world is out to get him, and he's the only one who can make a change for the world. So he went ahead and attempted to remove the evidence. The whole Beast story set up ultimately Ellie Sattler's story, but also added a sense of tension and fear around the globe of this Jurassic universe. It shows that genetic manipulation is still a key factor in this universe despite the dinosaurs being out there and breeding all across the globe and migrating at an alarming rate. Dinosaurs are not the only issue, but there are still other issues going on that need solving. So overall, that means that the story of the Locusts within Jurassic World Dominion was incredibly important to the overall story and the expansion of this world, proving that there are more threats that can arise than just dinosaurs. And these can be somewhat more relatable threats that we could see someday in our everyday world as well. But yeah, that's Hexapod Allies explained in Jurassic World Dominion. A slightly confusing one, but one that makes the B story of Dominion just that little bit better, and also opens up and widens the expansion of this universe just that little bit more. It's a very interesting set of events to say the least. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content and information about the Jurassic franchise. Don't forget to also like the video if you happen to enjoy it at any given moment, but most importantly, make sure you're all staying safe out there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye. Hello, hi, you. Did you enjoy the video? Just a little reminder to press that like button and also subscribe. I just want to thank my Patreons for this month on screen right here, as giving me that little extra support really does go a long way. But anyways, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.